Hi, I'm Colby Pearce. I'm a clinical psychologist in Australia and author of a short introduction to attachment and attachment disorder and a short introduction to promoting resilience in children. I'm also the author of the AAA model of therapeutic care, a comprehensive training program for general and relative foster carers, which is in its 5th year of implementation in the Tusla Fostering Service in Donegal, Ireland. Further, I'm the author of the Care Curriculum, which was delivered as part of the Kinship Care project to statutory kinship carers in South Australia over the last 2 years. Very few people will get through this global pandemic without being affected in some way. Some will cope better than others. Our prior life experiences can be a help or a hindrance. Those who have experienced adversity in the past and overcome it will likely fare better during these difficult times. Those who have experienced overwhelming adversity from which they have not or are yet to recover are likely to be particularly impacted. Children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life are vulnerable to being particularly impacted by the current pandemic and measures to control it. The pandemic has suddenly and with little or no prior warning made uncertainty, confinement and restriction, including in relation to access to basic needs, salient aspects of our day-to-day experience. While this is stressful for most of us, it can be particularly stressful for children and young people in out-of-home care. It can put additional strain on their foster and kinship care placements at a time of reduced capacity to absorb additional pressures. Uncertainty, including in relation to our health and the health of our loved ones, our access to basic needs, and what the future holds, is anxiety evoking. It can leave us preoccupied with accessing basic needs and lead us to behave in ways that increase our chances of being able to achieve needs provision and feel safe. Uncertainty, coupled with the media coverage of the pandemic, can leave us experiencing ourselves as inadequate, others as threatening and dangerous, and the world as unsafe. Our current uncertainty and its psychological impacts on us provide an insight into what life is like for children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life. It affects the beliefs we hold about ourselves, others, and our world that influence our approach to life and relationships. I refer to these beliefs as attachment representations. They are also commonly referred to as internal working models or schema. It leaves our motor, that is our nervous system, running too fast or too highly activated and vulnerable to blowing up. It is shaping our learning about our access to basic needs provision and what actions are required to assure access. Our own response to the pandemic reflects the AAA model, which I developed to explain what I have observed across a long career about the impact of a tough start to life on the psychological functioning of children and young people and their approach to life and relationships. If we are vulnerable to becoming a little or a lot like children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life in these troubled times, imagine what it is like for them. In these difficult times, there is a heightened vulnerability to regression to approaching life and relationships under the influence of negative beliefs about self, other, and world, heightened arousal and anxiety proneness, and a preoccupation with accessibility to needs provision. The current times, with its change and uncertainty, restriction, and increased physical closeness to adults who themselves are stressed, are likely to be trauma triggering for children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life. Foster and kinship carers, you may see emotional displays and behaviours you have not seen in some time, or a heightening of emotional displays and behaviours. Managing these trauma-related displays and behaviours can leave you feeling below your best and negatively impact your approach to the caregiving role. A problematic cycle can emerge where stressed children and young people and stressed adults heighten each other, leaving placements under pressure and vulnerable, notwithstanding our best intentions in less troubled times. What is needed now, more than ever, is a plan for how foster and kinship carers can reduce the impact of these troubled times on the children and young people they are caring for and themselves. Their care curriculum offers such a plan. The care curriculum stands for consistency, accessibility, responsiveness, and emotional connectedness. Children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life benefit from care. Consistency is calming and supports new learning about the stability and predictability of life and the accessibility and responsiveness of adults in a caregiving role. Accessibility reassures children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life that they are thought of, that they are important, and that adults in a caregiving role are there for them when they need them. Accessibility reassures the children and young people that they can rely on others. Accessibility is calming and reduces proneness to problematic behaviours associated with anxiety and activation of the fight, flight, freeze response, including controlling aggressive and destructive behaviours or fight behaviours, hyperactivity, running away and hiding or flight behaviours, and reduce responsiveness to others and to the environment or freeze behaviours. Responsiveness reassures children and young people who are recovering from a tough start to life that their needs are understood and important and will be addressed without them having to control and regulate adults in a caregiving role or access to needs to make it so. Responsiveness is calming. Responsiveness supports more optimistic ideas and beliefs about the child or young person's worth and deservedness, about the sensitivity and reliability of adults in a caregiving role, and about their access to needs provision. Emotional connectedness supports opportunities for emotional growth, emotional regulation, empathy, and self-regulation in consideration of the experience of others. Emotional connectedness supports experiences of being acknowledged and supported by caring adults, lower arousal levels, and trusting relationships. The care curriculum recognises that children and young people need a little extra care in these troubled times in pursuit of outcomes where children and young people who are recovering from early adversity approach life and relationships under the influence of secure attachment representations, lower arousal levels, and trust in accessibility to needs provision. As I hope to show you, a little extra care is anticipated to preserve foster and kinship care placements during these extraordinary times. In this series, I'm going to talk about how to implement a care plan. However, before I start, I want to talk a little about you. I want you to take a moment to look at the array of maths equations and notice what is the first thing that stands out for you. When I show this array to many audiences, the first thing that stands out is the equation that is wrong, the one in the bottom left corner. We seem to be hardwired to notice things that are wrong so that we might put them right. We are problem solvers. In tough times, this problem focus can be overwhelming. It may even undermine our efforts. The reality is that 9 of the maths equations are right. Similarly, you are probably doing more to help the children and young people in your care than you think. When I talk about implementing a care plan, I hope you will see that this is so. I want you to also know that small adjustments or fine-tuning are all that is needed. You and your children are already contending with enough change anyway. In the circumstances, a little extra care goes a long way.